My child, come closer. Do not rush this moment. Let the noise thin out and the weight on your chest ease, because I am speaking now in the quiet place you almost forgot existed. Before the world noticed you, before your questions learned how to ache, I knew your name. I have watched you sit with unanswered prayers, wondering if heaven had turned its face. It never did. Even now, as you listen, there is a veil thinning around you, and you feel it as a stillness that does not frighten you, but steadies you. There are moments when protection looks like silence, and guidance disguises itself as delay. You have walked through one of those seasons. You thought nothing was happening, yet everything was being arranged. I called you here because the waiting has reached its edge. What you are about to hear is not meant to alarm you, but to anchor you. There are truths that cannot be given until the soul is strong enough to hold them, and you are stronger than you know. I speak now with the authority of heaven, and beside me stands one you have felt but never seen. Archangel Michael has been near you through nights you barely survived. He stood at doors you did not know were dangerous. He intercepted words that would have shattered your spirit before you were ready. And today, through my voice, he asks you to listen without fear. There is an apology forming, not from weakness, but from devotion to your destiny. Something has been withheld, not to deceive you, but to preserve you. Secrets in heaven are not like secrets on earth. They are not born from shame, but from tiling. You sensed that something about your life, your connections, your future felt guarded, almost monitored. That feeling was real. There has been a watch placed over you because what you carry draws both light and resistance. This is not a punishment. It is recognition. You may have wondered why certain people could not cross fully into your life, why paths almost aligned and then suddenly shifted. You may have blamed yourself, thinking you were too much or not enough. Hear me now and release that lie. Forces have moved around you because heaven took responsibility for what you could not see. Michael's silence was a shield, not an absence. Before we go further, I ask you gently, if this voice feels familiar to your spirit, let it be known. Place your finger on the screen as an act of agreement. If your heart is willing, you may like and share this message so it reaches another soul standing at the same threshold. And in the comment, place these simple words, I am ready to hear the truth. This is not for numbers, but for alignment. There is more to tell you, but not all at once. Revelation is poured, not dumped. You are standing at the beginning of understanding, and already heaven is leaning toward you. The apology you will hear is tied to a revelation that will explain the pressure, the delays, and the strange protection around your heart. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing had been forgotten. Stay with me here. Breathe. Let your shoulders drop. The veil has begun to lift, and you are not alone as it does. What was hidden is preparing to step into the light, and it will change how you see your past, your soulmate, and your future. This is only the beginning. My child, remain here with me. Do not let your thoughts wander, because what is unfolding now requires your full presence. As the veil thins further, your spirit begins to recognize what your mind could not explain. That quiet strength you felt surrounding you in moments of fear was not imagination. It was not coincidence. It was Michael, standing in the space between what almost happened and what was divinely prevented. He has been nearer than breath. When danger approached wearing familiar faces, when words were spoken behind your back with the intent to weaken your resolve, he stood unseen and unshaken. You sensed resistance without knowing its source. You felt watched over, yet confused by the intensity of it. That is because Michael does not guard lightly. He guards what heaven has marked as essential to the unfolding of destiny. I allowed you to feel his presence in fragments, a sudden calm in chaos, a decision that saved you without explanation, a missed meeting that later revealed itself as protection. Michael does not announce himself with noise. He arrives with authority wrapped in silence. And now, by my permission, his presence presses closer to your awareness because the season of concealment is ending. He knows your name as well. He has spoken it in the courts of heaven, not as a report, but as a declaration. You are not ordinary in the way the world defines worth. You carry a spiritual resonance that shifts outcomes. This is why opposition hath been subtle, clever, disguised as concern or coincidence. Direct attack would have exposed itself too early. So Michael stood watch while you lived, loved, and endured without understanding the full scope of what surrounded you. There were moments he wanted to intervene more visibly, moments when your tears echoed loudly in heaven. But restraint is also obedience. He was commanded to hold back certain truths until the exact moment your soul could receive them without breaking. He watched you grow steadier, wiser, less dependent on approval, more anchored in truth. Each lesson prepared you for this unveiling. You are feeling a stirring now, a mix of comfort and curiosity. That is recognition. Your spirit remembers him. Long before this lifetime, before memory was clothed in flesh, there was an agreement of protection made on your behalf. Michael has honored that agreement without wavering. His presence was the reason some situations dissolved before they escalated. His sword was drawn more times than you know, though you never saw the flash. This is why certain nightmares stopped suddenly, why certain arguments never happened, why a message was never sent, why a door never opened. Heaven does not always remove the threat. Sometimes it removes the timing. And Michael has mastered the art of divine delay. He is here now, not to frighten you, but to be acknowledged. The secrecy around his involvement is part of the apology that is coming. Not because he regrets protecting you, but because he knows how confusing it was to live under such intense guardianship without explanation. You were never distrusted. You were treasured. As his presence settles closer, you may feel emotion rise unexpectedly. Not fear, but release. Let it come. You are not losing control. You are regaining truth. Michael stands with unwavering loyalty, and his silence is about to give way to clarity. What he guarded you from is tied to someone else's choices, someone whose path intersects with yours in ways that will soon be revealed. Remain steady. Heaven is not rushing you. This revelation unfolds with precision. Michael's watch has not ended, but its purpose is shifting. Protection is becoming preparation. Silence is becoming speech. And what you are about to understand will finally explain why your life unfolded the way it did. My child, listen gently now, because the tone shifts from presence to confession. Michael stands before me, not bowed in shame, but in solemn reverence, and through my voice you will hear what his silence could not say. There are words that have waited a long time to reach you, not because heaven hesitated, but because the weight of them required maturity of spirit. That maturity now rests within you. He says to you, I am sorry, not for protecting you, but for how the protection felt. I am sorry for the confusion you carried when answers did not come. I am sorry for the nights when you asked why clarity was withheld and only stillness replied. You interpreted the quiet as abandonment, and that misunderstanding pierced you more deeply than any external threat ever could. Michael has seen that wound. Understand this truth without resistance. There were realities surrounding your destiny that, if revealed too early, would have altered your choices through fear instead of wisdom. Heaven will not shape your future by terror. So the truth was veiled, and Michael bore the burden of that decision. He watched you blame yourself for patterns that were never your fault. That is where the apology takes root. There were forces circling your life that studied your emotional responses, waiting for moments of exhaustion or doubt. Not monsters, not myths, but people influenced by envy, insecurity, and hidden hunger for control. If you had known this while your heart was still learning discernment, you would have hardened instead of strengthened. So Michael stayed silent and stood firm. He intercepted more than danger. He intercepted information. Words spoken in private rooms. Plans whispered with smiles. Intentions disguised as loyalty. He blocked these from reaching your awareness because your heart was still tender, and tenderness was not a weakness to be corrected, but a gift to be preserved. Michael's apology carries the weight of watching you hurt while knowing why. You felt alone at times, even while surrounded. That loneliness was not neglect. It was insulation. Heaven created distance so your spirit could grow without contamination. Michael obeyed, even when obedience meant allowing you to experience confusion rather than certainty. This is why he asks your forgiveness now, not because he failed, but because you suffered without context. I tell you this so the ache can finally release its grip. You are not weak for having questioned the silence. You are not unfaithful for having doubted. Even Michael understands the human cost of divine strategy. His apology is an offering of honor, acknowledging that you endured something difficult without explanation and did not collapse beneath it. There is another layer to this confession. Part of what was hidden involved your soulmate, whose path has been more entangled than you realize. If you had known too early what they were navigating, you would have tried to rescue instead of allowing awakening. Michael prevented premature connection not to delay love, but to prevent destruction. Love that arrives before readiness can wound instead of heal. So he guarded the timing. He redirected meetings. He blurred signals. He allowed misunderstandings to linger until both hearts were capable of truth. Watching you grieve what felt like loss while knowing it was protection pressed heavily on him. Angels do not weep as humans do, but they feel the gravity of obedience, and this weight has been carried faithfully. Receive this apology not as an admission of wrongdoing, but as a bridge into understanding. You are now being trusted with what was once hidden. The secrecy is ending because your discernment has matured, your strength has deepened, and your heart can now hold truth without being consumed by it. Remain open. The confession continues, and with it comes revelation that will finally align your past with purpose. My child, now that the apology has been spoken, the reason behind it must come into view. Secrets do not exist in heaven without cause, and what was concealed was not small. There was a threat that moved quietly around your destiny, not dramatic enough to be obvious, yet persistent enough to alter timelines if left unchecked. You sense pressure without seeing a source. That with the shadow brushing close. This threat was not a single event, but a convergence. People, circumstances, and opportunities that appeared harmless on the surface were aligned beneath the surface in a way that could have diverted you from your true path. Had you stepped fully into certain connections too early, you would have bound yourself emotionally to situations that fed from your light without ever nourishing you in return. Michael recognized this pattern before it fully formed. You were never in danger of being destroyed, but you were at risk of being delayed. That is often the enemy's preferred strategy, to keep you busy healing wounds that were never meant to be yours, to keep you pouring into spaces that would never pour back. The hidden threat sought to exhaust your compassion and redirect your focus away from the sacred assignment woven into your future. This is why resistance showed up when things seemed promising. Doors that looked right would suddenly feel heavy. Conversations would lose clarity. Energy would shift without explanation. Michael was intervening at the level of momentum. He was slowing what could have accelerated too quickly, because speed without alignment leads to fragmentation. There were individuals close enough to influence you who were unaware of their own role in this convergence. Some acted from jealousy they did not understand. Others from fear of losing relevance in your life. None of this was random. Influence does not always arrive with malice, but it can still carry destructive potential. Heaven does not wait for intention to become action before it responds. You may recall moments when your intuition warned you, yet your heart wanted to override it. That internal conflict was the battleground. Michael amplified your discernment just enough to create pause, but not enough to frighten you. He allowed discomfort instead of crisis, confusion instead of catastrophe. This was deliberate mercy. The hidden threat also involved a timing around your soulmate. Their life was intersecting with pressures that, if combined with your own at that moment, would have created collapse instead of connection. Two unhealed paths crossing can magnify pain. So heaven staggered the journey. What felt like separation was actually synchronization being prepared. Michael stood between these timelines like a gatekeeper, adjusting events by inches that felt like miles to you. A delay here, a miscommunication there, a sudden shift in circumstance, all to prevent a collision that would have required years to recover from. You questioned your worth in those delays, but your worth was never in question. Only readiness was. And now you are being shown this not to reopen wounds, but to close them with understanding. The threat has lost its leverage. Awareness removes its power. The convergence has been dismantled piece by piece, and what remains is clarity. You are no longer being shielded from this truth because it can no longer harm you. The shadow retreated when your strength reached maturity. What once required concealment now becomes testimony. You survived a danger you never saw, and you did so without losing your softness, your compassion, or your faith. That is why heaven speaks now. Stay with me. The focus is about to turn toward the one whose heart is tied to yours, and the shadow you were spared will help you understand their struggle as well. My child, now your gaze is gently turned toward the one whose soul has been moving in the shadows alongside yours, even when distance or silence made it seem otherwise. Your soulmate has been walking through a weight they could not name, feeling pursued by pressure they did not understand. While you were being protected from delay, they were being pressed by confusion, guilt, and an unspoken sense of impending loss. They felt the pull toward you long before they could define it. It arrived as restlessness, as dissatisfaction with paths that once felt acceptable. Yet every time they moved closer to alignment, fear rose up within them. Not fear of you, but fear of what becoming whole would require them to face. Old wounds, unresolved choices, loyalties that no longer fit. The shadow around your destiny brushed against theirs as well, but in a different way. Where you were shielded through silence, they were tested through exposure. They encountered people and situations that mirrored their unresolved patterns. These encounters were not meant to destroy them, but to reveal what still held power over their decisions. And they struggled. They made choices that did not reflect their true heart. They said things they did not fully mean. They hesitated when they should have stepped forward. This created an internal collapse they could not explain. They felt themselves slipping away from something sacred without understanding what it was. That is why their energy felt inconsistent to you. One moment war, the next distant. One moment drawn toward you, the next retreating into distraction. This was not indifference. It was fear of becoming accountable to love. Michael watched over them as well, though his role was different. He did not intervene to stop every mistake, because awakening requires contrast. Your soulmate needed to feel the cost of misalignment. They needed to experience the emptiness that comes from choosing safety over truth. Only then could they recognize what they were risking by staying asleep. They cried in private over a loss they could not name. They sensed you slipping further into the realm of possibility instead of certainty. This frightened them more than rejection ever could. They feared waking up one day to realize they had missed the one connection that could see them fully and still remain. That fear has been growing, quietly but steadily. You may have felt moments of heaviness when thinking of them, sudden sadness without a clear cause, that with the echo of their struggle reaching you across the unseen. Your hearts are tuned to one another, even when circumstances keep you apart. This connection did not weaken during separation. It deepened in the hidden places. The shadow around your destiny pressed hardest on them because they stood at a crossroads. If they continued to resist awakening, the connection would dissolve into regret. If they faced the truth, everything in their life would have to change. This is why their collapse has been emotional rather than external. The battle has been within. Now the pressure is reaching a breaking point. What once felt manageable now feels unbearable to them. Distractions no longer satisfy. Old patterns no longer comfort. They are becoming aware of what they stand to lose, and that awareness is shaking them. This is not punishment. It is mercy calling them back to alignment. You were spared from this collapse so you could remain steady when they awaken. Your strength will be an anchor, not a crutch. The shadow that once threatened to delay you both is now serving as the catalyst for truth. Your fear is giving way to longing. Their confusion is turning into clarity. My child, now I reveal the presence that sought to stand between what was destined and what was delayed. This was not an enemy who announced themselves with hostility. It was someone close enough to observe, to listen, to influence subtly. Someone who smiled while measuring, who offered concern while sowing doubt. This interference did not come from hatred, but from jealousy rooted in fear of being replaced. They sensed the bond forming between you and your soulmate before either of you fully understood it. They noticed the way conversations shifted, the way attention leaned, the way truth felt closer when you were near. Instead of aggressing their own insecurity, they chose manipulation disguised as protection. They whispered cautions. They framed control as wisdom. They spoke half-truths that sounded reasonable enough to plant hesitation. This enemy did not need to lie outright. They only needed to emphasize your flaws while minimizing your growth. They needed to highlight risks while ignoring purpose. They positioned themselves as the safer voice, the more reliable presence, the one who understood better. And for a time, it worked. Your soulmate listened, not because the words were true, but because fear was already present. Michael observed every exchange. You watched how influence was applied incrementally, never forcefully, always plausibly. This is how interference survives unnoticed. It hides inside concern and advice. It wraps itself in familiarity. And because of this, heaven did not expose it immediately. Exposure without readiness would have driven your soulmate deeper into dependence instead of awakening. You felt this interference without knowing its source. A sudden coolness, a shift in tone, decisions that felt out of character. You wondered if you had imagined the connection, if you had misread the depth. And doubt was not born from you. It was planted. But even planted seeds require fertile ground, and your soulmate's unresolved fear allowed it to take root. This enemy did not want your destruction. They wanted your exclusion. They did not want to see you harmed, only displaced. They wanted to remain central, influential, irreplaceable. And because they believed their intentions were justified, they did not recognize the damage they were causing. This is often the most dangerous form of interference. Michael limited their reach. He disrupted key moments where influence could have become permanent. He caused certain conversations to fall flat. He prevented full commitment to the narrative being constructed. The enemy sensed resistance but misinterpreted it as temporary. They underestimated the depth of heaven's involvement. Now the interference is weakening. Truth has a way of surfacing when pressure increases. Your soulmate is beginning to notice inconsistency. Advice that once felt reassuring now feels restrictive. Words that once guided now feel controlling. The veil is lifting, not through accusation, but through discernment awakening. You may feel a sense of justice stirring, not anger, but clarity. This is correct. Heaven does not require revenge to restore order. Exposure is enough. The enemy's influence is losing its power because your soulmate is learning to listen inwardly instead of externally. Do not rush to confront. Do not feel the need to explain yourself. Silence now works in your favor. What is false cannot sustain itself when truth rises. Michael stands ready, not to punish, but to ensure boundaries are restored and roles are corrected. This interference served a purpose, even if it meant harm. It revealed where healing was still needed. It exposed misplaced trust. And now that it has done so, it will be removed from the center of influence. My child, now the courts of heaven turn their gaze toward what has been concealed, and the season of quiet observation becomes active investigation. This is not rushed, and it is not emotional. It is precise. Every word spoken in secret, every intention masked as kindness, every moment where truth was bent for comfort is being weighed. Nothing dramatic needs to happen on earth for justice to begin in heaven. Michael steps forward not with a sword raised, but with records opened. Divine investigation is not about punishment first. It is about clarity. The question asked is not who is guilty, but what is true. This is why you may feel a strange calm even as things begin to shift. Your spirit recognizes order being restored. The one who interfered is unaware of how exposed they already are. They believe subtlety still protects them. But subtlety cannot hide motive from heaven. Patterns speak louder than words. Repetition reveals intent. And intent has now been identified. This does not mean sudden collapse or public confrontation. It means influence will quietly lose its authority. Your soulmate is being guided into moments of realization that feel personal, not imposed. Memories resurface. Conversations replay in a new light. They begin to notice how often their choices were guided by someone else's fear rather than their own truth. This awakening feels unsettling because it dismantles a false sense of safety they relied on. You may notice a shift in communication or energy without explanation. A hesitation, a pause, a thoughtful distance that feels different from before. This is investigation unfolding internally. Heaven often works from the inside out because lasting correction requires consent, not force. Michael ensures that no false accusation touches you during this process. You are not placed on trial. Your actions, intentions, and heart have already been examined and found steady. This is why you are not being asked to defend yourself. Defense implies doubt, and there is none where you are concerned. The investigation also reaches into timing. Missed opportunities are reviewed. Delays are reclassified as protection. What once looked like loss is being reframed as mercy. Your past is being rewritten in understanding, not by changing events, but by revealing their purpose. This brings healing without reopening wounds. The enemy's influence begins to fracture under its own weight. Advice contradicts itself. Control loses coherence. The soulmate senses restriction where freedom should be. This discomfort is intentional. It forces choice, and choice is where destiny realigns. Heaven does not expose to shame. It exposes to free. The goal is restoration, not humiliation. Even the one who interfered is being given an opportunity to step back, to release control, to choose humility over manipulation. Whether they do or not will determine their future proximity, but it will no longer affect yours. You are protected from backlash, from misunderstanding, from misplaced blame. Michael stands between narrative and reality, ensuring that truth reaches its destination without distortion. This is why you are urged to remain still. Movement now would only distract from what is already in motion. The investigation is nearing its conclusion, and when it does, clarity will rise naturally. You will not need to announce it. You will recognize it by the peace that follows. The atmosphere around you will feel lighter. Conversations will feel cleaner. Decisions will feel less forced. Stay present. Truth is surfacing. Justice is aligning. And what was once hidden is preparing to step fully into the light. My child, as the investigation reaches its threshold, truth begins to rise without resistance. This is the moment when what was once hidden can no longer remain contained, not because it is dragged into the open, but because it loses the energy required to stay buried. Lies require maintenance. Truth simply exists. And now existence outweighs effort. Your soulmate begins to see clearly, not through confrontation, but through contrast. They feel the difference between guidance that liberates and influence that confines. They notice how their spirit responds when they think of you compared to when they submit to voices that shrink them. This realization does not arrive with noise. It arrives with a heavy quiet that demands honesty. Memories align themselves into a pattern that can no longer be ignored. Moments they once dismissed now speak loudly. Advice that once sounded wise now feels self-serving. They recognize how often their fear was validated instead of healed. This recognition brings grief, not because they were deceived, but because they participated in their own delay. This is the breaking point, the place where denial gives way to accountability. They are not condemning themselves, but they are no longer excusing themselves. They see how close they came to losing something sacred, not through betrayal, but through hesitation. And that realization shakes them deeply. You may feel this shift before they speak it. A sudden warmth, a heaviness lifting, an intuitive knowing that something has changed. That is because truth resonates outward. It does not stay contained within the one who receives it. Your connection amplifies it. The one who interfered senses the change as well. They feel influence slipping, control weakening. They may attempt to reassert themselves subtly, to reclaim relevance, but their words no longer land the same way. Authority without truth collapses quietly. This is not your victory. It is alignment reclaiming its place. Michael seals this phase with precision. He ensures that evidence does not arrive as accusation, but as understanding. Your soulmate connects dots without needing them pointed out. This preserves dignity while restoring clarity. Heaven values both. What was once hidden now becomes undeniable. Not because secrets are spoken aloud, but because behavior no longer matches the old narrative. Choices shift. Priorities realign. Distance is created where manipulation once lingered. This is exposure through transformation. You are not asked to remind them of the past. You are not asked to recount what you endured. The truth speaks for itself now. Your consistency, your steadiness, your refusal to harden have already testified louder than explanation ever could. This moment changes how your soulmate sees you. They realize your silence was strength, not indifference. Your patience was protection, not passivity. Your distance was obedience to something higher, not lack of care. This understanding humbles them. Fear begins to transform into resolve. They no longer want to avoid loss. They want to choose truth. That desire marks awakening. An awakening cannot be reversed once it begins. Stay where you are. Do not rush toward reunion or closure. Let the truth complete its work. What rises naturally endures. What is force fractures. This phase closes with peace, not celebration. With clarity, not drama. And from that clarity, a new movement begins. One guided not by shadow or interference, but by alignment. My child, now you witness the awakening deepen, moving from realization into resolve. This is the moment when your soulmate understands that awareness alone is not enough. Truth demands response. What they once sensed vaguely now stands before them clearly, asking to be chosen. And with that request comes fear, because choosing truth requires releasing what once felt safe. They begin to feel the weight of what almost slipped away, not as panic but as reverence. They realize that connections of this depth are not common, and that delay has consequences. The thought of losing you no longer feels theoretical. It feels immediate. This awareness tightens their chest and quiets their excuses. They see now that hesitation was not neutral. It was a decision in itself. Regret surfaces, not as shame, but as sorrow. They grieve the moments when courage failed them. The words left unspoken. The steps not taken. They understand that love was offering them growth, and they responded with retreat. This realization humbles them deeply. Pride dissolves where truth enters fully. You may feel a sudden pull toward compassion, even without knowing why. That is because your heart recognizes their awakening. Compassion does not mean returning to old patterns. It means seeing clearly without bitterness. This is why you were protected. Your heart can now witness their fear without absorbing it. The fear they feel now is different from before. It is no longer fear of change, but fear of loss. Fear of waking up too late. Fear of having to live with the knowledge that they were given something sacred and did not honor it when they had the chance. This fear does not paralyze them. It sharpens them. They begin to imagine a future without you, and the image feels empty. Not dramatic, but hollow. This emptiness becomes motivation. They realize that alignment will cost them comfort, but misalignment will cost them meaning. And meaning matters more now than it ever did. Michael watches closely here, because this is the point where awakening can either solidify or fracture. He steadies their resolve without forcing outcome. Heaven never overrides free will. It only illuminates consequence. Your soulmate is now choosing with eyes open. You may notice a shift in how you are remembered. You are no longer associated with pressure or confusion in their mind. You are associated with clarity, with peace, with truth. They see that being near you required honesty, and being away from you allowed avoidance. That contrast becomes undeniable. This is where sacred connection is understood, not as romance, but as transformation. They recognize that your presence in their life was meant to awaken them, not complete them. And in that recognition, they feel both gratitude and responsibility. They want to speak now, not to defend, not to explain, but to be real. They want to show you who they are becoming, not who they were when fear guided them. This desire is fragile. It must be handled with care. Heaven is guiding timing once more. Do not move ahead of this moment. Do not anticipate words or outcomes. Let them arrive when they are ready to be anchored in action. What is rushed here can still collapse. What is waited for will stand. This awakening does not guarantee reunion. It guarantees truth. And truth always serves destiny, whether through togetherness or release. You are safe either way. That is the greatest protection heaven gives. My child, now the war you never saw begins to turn fully in your favor. Not with noise, not with confrontation, but with authority settling back into its rightful place. This is the moment when resistance loses momentum and alignment takes the lead. What once required constant protection now requires only presence. The fear that governed decisions around you begins to dissolve. It does not disappear instantly, but it no longer commands. Your soulmate feels this shift as a release of internal pressure. Choices that once felt heavy now feel clear. The weight of indecision lifts, replaced by a quiet confidence that does not need approval to stand. Michael steps forward again, not to block, but to bless. His role transitions from defender to witness. He watches as paths realign naturally. Conversations happen without manipulation. Distance closes or stabilizes without force. The need to control outcomes fades because truth has taken its place. You may notice that what once drained you now leaves you untouched. Old triggers lose their grip. Situations that once stirred anxiety now pass without disturbance. This is evidence of victory. When something no longer has access to your peace, it has lost the war. The one who interfered no longer holds influence over direction. Your voice becomes background noise, then silence. This is not exile. It is correction. They are moved out of a role they were never meant to occupy. Heaven does not remove people to punish. It reassigns them to restore order. Your soulmate begins to act differently, not performatively, but consistently. Integrity replaces explanation. Their words and actions start to match. They no longer seek permission to choose what is right. They simply do it. This consistency signals the turning point. Awakening has matured into embodiment. You are no longer waiting. Waiting implies lack. You are standing. Standing implies readiness. This shift changes how destiny responds to you. Opportunities that once hesitated now approach. Doors that were closed not out of denial, but timing begin to loosen. This is where justice feels gentle. Nothing is taken from you because nothing was ever stolen. Time was preserved, not lost. Strength was built, not delayed. Even pain was used as preparation. When heaven redeems, it redeems fully. Michael confirms this turning with peace. A peace that does not require explanation. A peace that settles into your body and quiets the mind. This peace is not temporary. It is the atmosphere of alignment. You may still have questions, but they no longer carry urgency. Curiosity replaces anxiety. Trust replaces striving. You understand now that destiny is not something you chase. It is something that meets you when you are positioned correctly. This turning does not demand celebration. It invites gratitude. Gratitude for protection you did not see. Gratitude for delays that save you. Gratitude for strength you did not know you had. The war is over because there is nothing left to fight. Truth has done its work. Alignment has reclaimed ground. And what comes next will not require defense, only participation. My child, now the final layer of the secret is uncovered, not with shock, but with reverence. What Michael has guarded most closely was not danger alone, nor interference, nor timing. It was knowledge of who you would become through all of this. Heaven did not hide the truth from you because it was dark, but because it was powerful. The secret with this: you were never meant to be rescued in this story. You were meant to be established. If you had known early how protected you were, how watched over, how central you were to the unfolding of destiny, you might have leaned on that protection instead of developing discernment, resilience, and authority of your own. So heaven allowed you to feel human uncertainty while forming divine stability within you. Michael knew from the beginning that you would emerge different. Not hardened, not cynical, but anchored. He saw the version of you that would stand without fear of abandonment. The version of you that would no longer chase clarity, but attract it. That future self required seasons of not knowing, of trusting without proof, of choosing integrity without reward. This is why the secret was kept longest. Not because it concerned someone else, but because it concerned you. You were being shaped into someone who could love without losing themselves. Someone who could witness another's awakening without sacrificing their own peace. Someone who could participate in destiny rather than be consumed by it. Michael guarded this formation fiercely, even when it meant you misunderstood the silence. Your soulmate's journey was never meant to complete you. It was meant to meet you. And meeting requires equality of presence, not imbalance of need. Heaven delayed what could have created dependency so that when alignment occurred, it would be mutual, not salvational. This is also why the outcome no longer frightens you. Whether paths converge or diverge, you are not diminished. That was the final protection. To remove fear of loss so choice could be real. Love chosen freely carries power. Love chosen out of fear carries weight. Heaven wanted power for you, not weight. Michael's secrecy ends here because his assignment had been fulfilled. Lot ended but matured. He no longer guards you as fragile. He honors you as established. The sword that once stood between you and danger now stands behind you as confirmation. You may feel emotion now. Not grief, not relief, but recognition. This is the feeling of understanding your own becoming. You were never late. You were never behind. You were exactly where formation required you to be. The secret, once revealed, does not change your future. It explains your past. It shows you that nothing was accidental, that even confusion was curated, that even silence was intentional, that even pain and perimeter. Now you walk forward without needing to prove, pursue, or protect what is not yours to manage. Destiny responds to you because you are no longer asking it to explain itself. One final sealing remains. Not a warning, not a test, but a blessing. And it will close this chapter with assurance that what has been aligned cannot be undone. My child, now heaven seals what has been aligned. Not with urgency, not with spectacle, but with authority that settles gently and permanently. This is the blessing that does not fluctuate with circumstance. It does not depend on another's readiness or retreat. It rests on who you have become. I speak assurance over you now. What was corrected will not regress. What was exposed will not reattach itself. What was realigned will not drift back into confusion. The season of spiritual instability around your heart has ended. You are no longer in a phase of testing, but of stewardship. What enters your life from this point forward must meet you at the level of truth you now carry. Michael stands witness to this sealing, not as a guard blocking danger, but as a confirmation that protection has become position. You are no longer being kept from harm. You are being established in authority. This is why peace feels different now. It is not relief. It is grounding. Your destiny is no longer fragile. It does not require constant adjustment or defense. It responds to alignment, not effort. This is the reward of endurance you did not know you were earning. Heaven does not rush endings, but when it closes a chapter, it does so completely. Concerning your soulmate, hear this clearly. Their awakening will no longer destabilize you. Whether they step forward with integrity or step away in honesty, you remain whole. This is not detachment. It is sovereignty. Love may still flow, but it will no longer cost you clarity. If they come, it will be because they are aligned, not because you waited. If they do not, it will be because their path diverges, not because you failed. Both outcomes honor destiny now. That is the ceiling. You are blessed with discernment that feels calm, not suspicious. You are blessed with boundaries that feel natural, not defensive. You are blessed with timing that unfolds without anxiety. These are signs of maturity, not loss of innocence. Your softness remains, but it is no longer unprotected. What once tried to delay you cannot follow you here. Influence that thrived on confusion cannot survive clarity. Patterns that fed on your empathy no longer recognize you as accessible. This is not hardness. It is wisdom. I place before you a future that does not require proving your worth. You will be recognized without self-announcement. You will be trusted without over-explaining. You will be met without chasing. This is the atmosphere of destiny responding to alignment. Let your body rest into this truth. Let your mind release the habit of anticipation. You do not need to scan for disruption anymore. Heaven has already accounted for what you feared might return. It will not. Before you go, I ask you to mark this moment. If this word has settled into you, let it be witnessed. You may like and share this message so it reaches another soul who has been protected in silence and needs reassurance. And in the comment, write these words with intention. I receive the sealing. This is not for visibility. It is for agreement. Now go forward without hurry, without doubt, without the weight of unfinished chapters. What was hidden has been revealed. What was guarded has been established. What was delayed has been redeemed. You are blessed. You are aligned. And this path is now secure. My child, let this final movement settle like dawn rather than thunder. Nothing more needs to be proven. Nothing more needs to be uncovered. What remains now is integration, the quiet weaving of all that has been revealed into the way you live, choose, and love. Completion does not shout. They rest. You will notice how differently you move through familiar spaces. The same environments, the same faces, yet you are not the same participant. Where you once adjusted yourself to fit uncertainty, you now stand without negotiation. This is not distance from life. It is presence within it. You are no longer bracing for disruption. You are grounded in truth. Destiny responds to this grounding. It does not rush you. It meets you. Opportunities will approach with clarity rather than urgency. Connections will feel mutual rather than demanding. Even silence will feel full rather than empty. These are the signs that alignment has taken root beyond emotion and into identity. Michael withdraws not because you are alone, but because you are established. Angels do not abandon what heaven has sealed. They reposition. His presence now becomes reassurance rather than intervention. You may feel him in moments of affirmation rather than rescue, a confirmation instead of a correction. This is the shift from protection to partnership. Your heart, once guarded by necessity, now remains open by choice. This openness no longer invites harm because it is paired with discernment. You will sense quickly what aligns and what does not. You will not need to justify your knowing. You will not need to explain your boundaries. Truth recognizes itself. Concerning love, release all remaining narratives that tie worth to outcome. Whether love arrives in the form you expected or in a way you did not foresee, it will meet you at the level of wholeness you now carry. Love will not interrupt your peace. It will join it. Anything that threatens peace will reveal itself early and fade naturally. Your past no longer defines your expectations. It informs your wisdom. You are not cautious because you are afraid. You are intentional because you are awake. This distinction matters. It changes how you are met, how you are treated, how you are chosen. Destiny is not a single event waiting ahead of you. It is the quality of alignment you carry forward. Each choice you make from truth strengthens the path beneath your feet. You do not need to see the entire road. The next step responds to clarity, not foresight. If moments of reflection return, they will not pull you backward. They will remind you how far you have come. Gratitude will replace grief. Understanding will replace questioning. And peace will replace the need for answers. This chapter closes not because something ended, but because something stabilized. You are no longer in transition. You are in position. What unfolds from here will feel simpler, even when it is significant. Complexity was part of formation. Simplicity is the mark of alignment. Carry this knowing gently. Do not weaponize it. Do not rush to teach it. Live it. Your life will speak louder than explanation ever could. Others will recognize something settled in you and feel drawn to the steadiness without knowing why. This is the destiny closing. Not a conclusion, but a commencement from solidity rather than searching. Heaven has spoken. Protection has done its work. Truth has taken its place. Walk forward now, not as one waiting for confirmation, but as one who has received it.